What's it like living as a female expat in Asia? What are third culture kids? And can I bring my dog with me if I decide to relocate to an Asian country if I want to retire or work? Well, if those questions or any other questions about the expatriate lifestyle are of interest to you, great to have you with me. My name is Wendy, and for more than 3 decades, I've lived and worked in 5 different countries in Asia. And I still live and work in Asia, now in Thailand. And it's a Sunday morning here. There's lots of people around because it is a long weekend. So I apologize to all of those people who get accidentally caught in my video. But I want to talk about something that's really important and that affects all the women that I know and all of the women that I don't know too. And that's the question of menopause, the pause. What is it like going through or having been through menopause when you're an expat in Asia, or for Asian ladies indeed? So let's talk about a myth that I used to get told all of the time when I was first an expat, which I now realize is quasi-based in some fact, like a lot of myths are, but actually isn't really true. When I was first an expat, I used to get told all the time that Asian women don't suffer from menopause. They don't go through menopause, they don't have any symptoms of menopause, and they're just not affected by it in the same way that Western women are. But that's not actually true. Having lived in Asia for as long as I have and working with a lot of women, I realized that of course Asian women have menopause just like Western women do. Women in every culture have menopause. But it does present a little bit differently. Now, the science, or the fake science, used to be that women in Asia didn't have menopause because of the phytoestrogens in the amount of tofu that they were eating. That was what I heard back in the day. And again, it's not entirely true, but it's not really true either. Different cultures and different ethnicities do go through menopause in a slightly different way. There is a lot of science around that. For example, in Pakistan and India, the average age for a woman to go through menopause, it begins at 47, which is a few years younger than it is for Western women. The average age for a woman to start her menopause in the West is 52. Now, that may be just a genetic thing, that may be based around some sort of dietary thing, but it's just a fact. That one has been borne out by science. There is another thing that's interesting too, and I read this study. In Singapore and Southeast Asian countries, women who are going through menopause report the number one issue that they have as being joint pain, back pain, and basically physically aches and pains. That's the number one thing that they talk about. Whereas in the West, I think we tend to talk about things like hot flushes or night sweats. And that was certainly my experience going through menopause. So there are differences, but it doesn't mean that Asian women don't go through menopause. Of course they do. So let's talk about this, all right? And I can only talk about it from the things that I've observed and my own personal experience. So as a woman myself, I started to go through menopause. I think I began to feel the symptoms at around the age of 48, and it was mild. It was funny things like a hot flush here and there and, sort of a slightly irregular period. And I was living in Thailand, and I went off to Ob-Gynae, and I said, well, I think, this is happening. And my Thai Ob-Gynae, said, well, because I was on a pill, I was on a contraceptive, and he said, well, you've been taking this contraceptive for years, your body's changing, you need a different one. So he changed the pill, and that sort of seemed to take care of that. But as time progressed, obviously, my symptoms became stronger. And one of the hardest things that I really did face, particularly in a climate like this, were the night sweats and the body heat. Oh my God. If you think having a hot flush in a cold country is difficult, you try having a hot flush when the outside temperature is 39 degrees and your inside temperature is 165. So, it's not nice. And that was by far the hardest thing that I had to deal with. So you can do stuff about it. Air conditioning. I had an air conditioner and a fan blowing on me overnight to try and sort of cool things down. Changed my diet, made sure I exercised. I was very into Muay Thai at that time, so I tried to keep, fit and healthy, but it was a bit tough. Now, I consider myself quite lucky. I didn't have any major symptoms. I didn't have any, mental health issues that were surrounding that, with the hormones and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of things that can happen through menopause. But I did suffer terribly in the heat. So if you're considering moving or you're living in Asia and you know that this is about to happen to you, particularly in Southeast Asia, you need to kind of think about how you're going to handle the hot flushes, because they are an absolute bitch, I cannot tell you, when it comes to that sort of thing. So if you are somebody who needs extra help, so you need hormone replacement therapy, or you need, some kind of extra medication that's going to make this time easier for you, you also don't have to worry about that, because obviously, as I said, Asian women, in spite of the myths, do go through menopause, and there are doctors, female doctors, male doctors, highly qualified doctors, who are going to be able to support you in this way, even if it's things like symptoms like bladder control. So female bladder incontinence is a thing, particularly if you've had a bunch of kids. And so if you're worried about that, oh, this is embarrassing, how am I going to do this? Maybe I won't get the care that I need. Maybe I can't get the support that I need. That's just not true. You are going to find medical professionals and even support groups amongst the expatriate community, but also amongst the local women. I've seen tenor lady pads and all that sort of stuff in the shops. Everything is available that you need. So you really don't have to panic about, this difficult time, because it is a difficult time, let's be honest with you. And we didn't get a lot of support from, in the past, from, if you're my generation, from the family. I love that these days these things are more talked about. And I don't know what it was like in your household, but I may talk about this a bit later in the video. But in my household, menopause and periods was just something that you sort of had to deal with. But, I'm Gen X. Things have changed, thankfully. So if you are facing all of these issues, you're not going to be facing them alone, even if you're far from home. It's all going to be available to you, and it's going to be easy to access, and you're going to get the support that you need. The other thing you might want to think about is there a local equivalent, a sort of a supplementation or a herbal remedy that Asian women use that you might want to try? And, as long as it's not harmful, I don't see why not. In my own experience, I actually had something like that happen to me. I was standing up in front of a group of women, about 20 women, and I was coaching them, and Thai ladies. And this was in the beginning times when I was first going through menopause. And my face suddenly went the color of my lipstick, and my body just burst into a bath of sweat. And at the end of the session, one of the more senior women came up to me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I'm just having a hot flush. It's that time of life." And she actually gave me, out of her pocket, very kindly, a herbal remedy that Thais have, ladies from Thailand have, which they actually buy in the 7-Eleven. And it's one of these things that is some kind of herbs that are supposed to remove the heat from your chi. So your chi being your energy. And she said, just pop a couple of these under your tongue, and this will help to cool your body down. And, no harm, no foul. I tried it, and yeah, it seemed to work. That was great. And I popped those under my tongue. So yes, there are supplements that you can take in Asia that might be of no harm that you could try. So that's another thing to think about as well. And so if you're worried about how you're going to handle the menopause, or what happens in Asian countries, I really want to reassure you that you're going to get the right treatment. Are you worried that you're not going to have a good ob-gynae or somebody to speak to, or you want a female doctor? None of that's an issue. None of that is an issue for you. You're going to find somebody really great, really well qualified, who speaks your language, who's going to be able to explain what's going on. If you need some treatments, of course, Asia is a great place to get medical intervention. Do you need to have insurance? It's always, you should have insurance. It's really good to have insurance. But either way, depending on which country you're coming from, particularly if you're coming from the States, it's going to be cheaper here anyway. So, and if you're coming from Australia or the UK, places where you have national health, well, yeah, you might be out of pocket in some way, but it's not going to break the bank for you. So you don't have to worry about that. Do you have a script that your home country of Ghana has given to you, or your morning, or your very friendly, or your menopause specialist has given you? Can you get that script filled? Yes, you can. That's no problem at all. I've mentioned in another video that all pharmacists in Asia are taught their university degrees in English, because the medication, they need to understand how to explain it in English anyway. So you won't have any trouble getting your script filled. You won't have any trouble getting the medication that you need. There's nothing to worry about there. All you need to worry about if you're moving into Southeast Asia in particular is how you're going to handle the heat. So maybe that means, a swimming pool nearby, or you're going to think about the cost involved in keeping the house cool, something like that. And just do your best, as we have to do as women, to keep yourself together. And if you start to really, really suffer, if you start to need extra help because you're really not coping, then you don't really have to worry about that either, because you can always get some counselling. You can always go and speak to someone. There's plenty of women around as well to support. Remember that expatriate communities tend to be quite supportive. So if you're sort of thinking to yourself, oh my God, what happens to me? I don't know anybody and I'm going to go through this change of life and da 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 da. Look, when I was a kid, I was told a horror story about a relative of mine who ran away from home, and my family's notorious, having Portuguese ancestry, for growing beards after the age of 50, but I'm 56. I haven't grown a beard yet, although there are parts of my body that sometimes I have to pluck a few hairs. But apart from that, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about going through menopause. If you're in Asia, you're going to do great. And if you've got any questions about what it's like to live in Asia as a woman, as an expat woman, do feel free to leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, because that'd be great. And I hope you're having a great day. Bye.